Hey, how's it going? Day 273 on tap here. Thanks for coming back and joining us here at 365 Days Towards Racial Change. My name is Tom Lenz back, and we're here talking about racial issues, change, empowerment, disadvantages, solutions from the power group, of course, dominated by white folks, solutions for the disadvantaged group, uh, dominated by black folks, but everybody in between is invited to listen, participate, give feedback, because everybody will find themselves represented or able to represent themselves in some level, in some way, in this conversation. You can't escape it. You know, racism in America, to me, is the primary issue. You know, I was having a conversation with a young man at school, finished that another semester, got a little ways to go for my degree, but that's okay. You know, we just got to keep chipping away at it. But he was like a white guy too, very it's amazing. I lately I've started to run into white people who are generally concerned, sincerely concerned about the discrepancy between black and white access to power, participation in the structure of America. Genuinely interested and genuinely have misgivings and complaints about the disparity that exists in the American system behind this. And when I first started running into these white people, I was, oh, they're just outliers. But there's a big concern in a big community that don't like the idea that they are favored in America because they are white, and they don't like the idea that black people are at a disadvantage because their skin is black. Uh, you know, I can't articulate. I'm not obviously an authority on that, but it's interesting to run into. I'm a witness of the phenomenon, although don't know the ins and outs of it. But it sparked my interest. It's something we'll probably talk about here in a couple of weeks. We've got a little ways to go for that 365. So we're at 273 right now. And on that note, I mean, let's give a shout out today for the white mind, for the power structure, um, or more specifically, those who have favor within the power structure, which is generally white folks, and that today's post is a shout out to white folks who generally who really believe that they don't have any there's nothing special about them that makes them automatically have these rights, privileges, access to wealth. You know, yesterday we talked about our day 272. We talked about how these immigrants can come to America and they suddenly rise up in first, second, third generation European white immigrants, and how they just have a meteoric rise. And it's been that way actually uh, always in America. You know, they brought the black people in chains. They were a commodity. They were bought and sold, kidnapped, what have you. Where the immigrants came freely. So it's been that way. just the status quo. But getting back to these uh, white advocates, those people within the power structure of the system, it is interesting to see them, this group, advocate. Conversely, what's the position structure, the mind of black people, the mind of the disadvantaged? Do we just go on in a helpless state, being disadvantaged? I know I spent time on the street here in America. I've had some challenging times with drugs, alcohol, rehabs, shelters, and things like that. And I've lived so defeated, passive, uh, ready to take the first handout that came my way. Fortunately, I stayed sober enough, often enough, to get my mind right, so to speak, to be able to embrace, um, a pathway to empowerment. And you don't have to be black and have to be that far down to work on your mind on these issues. You can still, you know, you don't have to have that experience to motivate you to want to excel, do better, become more, be a better person um, in this world. Today we just want to acknowledge there are white advocates. There are people who are naturally in the power group who have a desire to see some equity be established in the land. We've not been there yet. Let me tell you, like, if we have to legislate it by law, it means it doesn't exist, right? We're just playing house, so to speak. If we have to write it on the books, it's not a genuinely occurring natural phenomenon. If I have to tell you not to abuse that group, not to discriminate against that group, to give that group access, if I have to write a law, it means it doesn't exist. It means it's not a naturally occurring phenomenon in the land. So that's something we need to think about, take a good look at. I'm Tomlin's Nyback, and we're here talking about racial issues and possible change. Um, I'm inspired to do this work by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. He's just recently, I realized I think he's trying to do some daily YouTube posts, which is not easy, as my experience has shows. This is day 273. I'm about 60 days behind schedule, but it's okay. Some legitimate stuff came up in life. But anyway, he's getting active back on YouTube, Dr. Claude Anderson. I encourage you to check him out because his work and it's his videos that informs me, Tomlin's Nyback, on here on racial change. So I have to keep giving him proper credit. Read 3 of his books, which informs a lot of these videos. If you look at past videos, we reference his work uh, exclusively, regularly. And we want to also give him a shout out on that note as well. We're in an extended story time, which if you're new, you'll get the hang of how this community works. Anyway, get these books. If you get one book, get this book at least. He sells bundles. I'll tell you where to get some of this stuff. A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and economic justice. Very, very good book about the you know discrepancies between black and white America. And Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics.com. You can find Dr. Anderson. I'm sorry, this is the book Powernomics, but you can find Dr. Anderson at Powernomics.com. Behind me, you'll see the hashtag #US2 symbol. We find black women having their community and their voice, connecting, networking, getting their needs met. Also, check out a website called Black Enough, kind of a black Facebook, and there's more people there, community networking, getting the word out. Now I'm not a big social media internet guy. Can't tell from 300, almost 200 and some odd videos. I'd rather have personal community, personal connection. Hopefully that will materialize in my future. Get out and breathe some air once in a while, I guess is what I'm saying. Keep your financial literacy in order to understand how your money works, where it's going, how to make it work for you in the future. Our minds may stay sharp until our last breath on the earth, but the bodies have a finite, have an expiration date. So we need to be mindful of that. And like I said, it is story time. One book I read, a Black History Reader by Dr. Claude Anderson, but also read this book, Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. Give you a good snapshot, give you some good backstory about the minds of white folks, black folks, slavery, America. Well, boy, slavery is such a black spot, and that America drags its feet and resists black success outside of entertainment. Uh, there's a reaping and sowing, a harvesting that will happen, I believe, in America. So America needs to be careful about how it treads. That's for another post. All right, today, 273, we're in Uncle Tom's Cabin, chapter 35, The Tokens. And the interesting story here has got some backstory. We're going to be reminded of some characters that have a lot of sentimental value and weight. Are some of the important white characters in the story have died, but they've left an eternal, everlasting impact on Tom's life and the life of a lot of the other slaves. We left Tom trying to reason with Cassey on what issue is Tom an expert on? Jesus, God, the Bible, and stuff. This is one slave sold out to the teachings of the God and glorious future, heaven, and things like that. We don't mock him. We don't fault him for that. Some of my concerns is how religion could be used to control the slave. Just another aspect to keep the slave disadvantaged, by amplifying slave scripture and pounding people with that. That's for another post. But I have interesting feelings about religion and slavery. Dr. Anderson does too. About how the black religious leaders were pawns and mouthpieces for the white overarching power structure. Tom's reasoning with Cassey, gospel. Cassey's jaded. She's a very beautiful mulatto woman, and these women are just sold as concubines in the South, used by white men. The live with white men almost as man and wife, but a lot of Southern laws prevented marriage between blacks and whites. Mulatto, the quadroon, octoroon, whatever shade you were, if you weren't white, you were black, and you're not allowed to marry that. Oh, they could have their harems and concubines and all this stuff, but they didn't want marriage because marriage meant that you'd give access to wealth and resources of the land. It's a lot of the debate we had just in our recent history behind gay marriage, right? Because gay marriage gave the spouses rights to insurance and property um, agreements, things like that. It always comes down to the dollar, how that works. And we're in Legree's place. It's kind of a man cave. It's foul, unkempt. He just drinks there. It's probably dark. It's not a well lit place. Everything's functional. Um, uh, things are where they need it. My space is kind of like that, you know. Um, but with Legree, he's a brute, so his place is probably just a little, a bit underneath my man cave. Um, but it's where he practices hedonism, whether it's on the women he buys or the way he entertains. Um, Sambo and Quimbo when he is in a poor space. We find Legree in this space having punch, chilling out, and Cassey is jaded now, and she's extra jaded because Legree has just bought a replacement for Cassey, and Cassey is still in the house around. So Cassey's like, you know, she's had it. Remember, Cassie's had her children taken. She's been lied to, used sexually, and all this. Now Legree's brought a younger mulatto to go, have his fresh experience with again. So Cassie's had it. Uh, yeah, Legree has some feelings. Uh, you know, they probably did have a time where there may have been a kind of intimacy between them and whatnot. But Legree's not the kind of guy to sustain that kind of environment. All right, that's not Legree. People, men and women like that, just evil for evil's sake, um, just for their pleasure. If making your life harder brought me pleasure, that's what I do. That's Legree's mind. He uses everything and everyone around him, and he's isolated in the middle of this swamp. That's where the plantation is. So he's king of the land. He's not. He's way off the main track, So he knows he's in control. Um, he's feeling uneasy. Tom showed up with his God and defiance. Cassie's starting to defy him. It's interesting how Harriet Beecher Stowe has made this complicated kind of triangle within the story right there. Um, Legree is afraid that Cassie's going insane. That's the last thing you want. You don't want to be at ease and sleep around someone going slowly insane. You might not wake up the next day. Um, Cassey she's just exasperated. She's okay with working in the field. No threat that Legree can level against her uh, moves her. Now she is touched by Tom's abuse, the way Legree uses Sambo and Quimbo to beat on Tom. You know, but the conversation between Cassey and Legree is like Legree, Legree's white power, and power doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless it's exercising power. That's all power knows is to be powerful, and it can't tolerate peace and all that. Now, remember, Tom is totally submissive. Put me in the field. I'll pick as much cotton as I can, all that. But Legree wants Tom's spirit, Tom's soul. But Tom is already sold out. He's given those parts of himself to another. He's has different allegiances, and he has an idea of fidelity uh, to what he's committed to. And Legree sees that, and it's just another thing for Legree to push through and overcome. So he's committed to working on Tom and committed to breaking him down and all that. It's finally, my guess is Legree would be bored as hell, except for his fresh mulatto concubine Emmeline, who showed up. But this challenge to his power is kind of got him going, even as futile and helpless as he seems. Sambo enters in the midst of the conversation and gives Legree this pouch that Tom has been carrying. And Legree opens it, and this blonde curl curls around his hand, and he shakes it off as though he's been bitten by a viper. And what it is, it's a lock of Eva's hair. Do you remember when Eva was dying? She called all the slaves together, had her hair cut, and she gave each a lock of hair. Well, this is the fruition of that moment, and it brings Legree back, so we get some backstory on why Legree reacts in this way, and that's because his mother gave him a similar lock of hair that curled around his hand and all that. And Legree has a poor history. He's a brute man. He followed his father's example, who was a brute. It's very common for these well-bred, brought-up women to be in the hands of these brute men in the South. Very sad. So Legree has treated his mother poorly in the past. She has since died. Well, right before she died, she sent this token, hence the name of the chapter, these tokens to Legree. And um, in the letter, the commentary along with it, she says she forgives him for being treated poorly by him and all this. And it just stirs up Legree to no end. Um, Remembering how he spurned his mother, how he treated his mother poorly. Um, with his head spinning over these issues, he just can't take it anymore. Excuse me. He goes, he has a horn and he blows it, and it's a signal to Sambo and Quimbo to come and entertain him. And apparently, this is a regular event whenever Legree wanted entertainment or was feeling down, you know, along with having young mulatto women to be sexual with, and his alcohol, and his space, his plantation, his control, and all of this, right? I mean, he's got everything a man could want, right? But he still has a need to have the disadvantaged folks, black folks, to come and entertain. And Sambo and Quimbo come running just like dogs at the meal or whatever, because uh, when Sambo and Quimbo hear that horn, they know they're going to drink and laugh and dance. They're going to try to entertain that white man until he passes out drunk or whatever. Um, so they come a running, and there's all kinds of entertainment, and he's gonna, Legree, he gets them to fight, dance, sing, well, whatever. It's Simon Says. You know, just the black man is at his best when he's entertaining his white thought, white slave master thought, and so he's going to dangle little trinkets, his drugs in the form of alcohol, and all these things in front of the black man. And the black man's going to dance and sing and fight and entertain for these little tokens and trinkets and alcohol and whatnot. Uh, and to perpetuate the stereotype of black folk in America. And that's the way it is today, too. I've seen it forwarded against me with good reason, because I was given to being led astray, to answering the call of the power group and its horn and um, its persuasions of alcohol and drugs and sex and all this, and I entertain them. They laugh and they smile, and were sometimes even led in worship uh, behind my participation and leadership in entertainment. You know, we see it on any given Sunday in football, many nights a week in basketball, any sports, and also entertainment formally, properly. My man Eddie Murphy is he's coming back to Saturday Night Live, right? And they're making a big thing of it. Nothing bad, nothing wrong with Eddie Murphy doing that. Um, but we never hear about his potential for leadership, uh, to articulate hard academic subjects. It's sad because if I ever met him, I'm thinking about 48 Hours, Saturday Night Live, all the movies and stuff. But who's Eddie Murphy the man? Who's Oprah Winfrey the woman? You know, um, right? What other dimensions do black people have? Are we complicated at all, or are we just so simple, like Sambo and Quimbo? Just blow a horn and we come a running because we believe there's some uh, We'll get a little trinkets and drugs and alcohol and money because we entertain. Who cares if we're taken seriously, if our voice, if our experience, articulating our experience in the nation has any value, right? So that's Legree's world that Harriet Beecher Stowe has created. Um, uh, I think it's very real. We see it played out today in these franchises and uh, ownership of sports teams and all this stuff. Just vote white dynasties in control. You know, they just you know, entice black people like with a fish on a hook. You know, so that's it. I'm Tomlin's Nyback. It's day 273 out of the way. Some interesting things we see happening on the Legree plantation, conflicts, tensions, and stuff like that. We're going to stay with Uncle Tom's Cabin for a little while here and flesh out some more of these issues as we go along. I'm Thomas Nyback. That's day 273 out of the way, 365 days towards racial change. I will see you soon. Bye bye.